A group of citizens, led by retired U.S. Forest Service wilderness expert, formed Wilderness Watch in 1989 to challenge illegal, destructive activities by commercial outfitters in the Frank Church River of No Return Wilderness in central Idaho, the largest wilderness outside of Alaska. None of the national environmental organizations were willing to take on this challenge, and so these individuals realized the need for a citizen organization to engage in wilderness protection and stewardship matters. Wilderness Watch was created to provide support for federal land managers who were trying to do the right thing, would challenge managers when they were wrong, and would counterbalance the special interest willing to compromise wilderness for their own private or commercial benefit. Wilderness Watch is America's only organization dedicated to keeping the lands and waters in the nation's 110 million acre National Wilderness Preservation System wild. To do this, we utilize public education, civic engagement, principled advocacy, congressional lobbying, and the courts. We strive to pass on to future generations a rich legacy of protected wilderness, wild lands where nature is in control, and where future generations can experience genuine wilderness complete with wildness and solitude, like the wild America that helped forge our national character. We need more people aware of and engaged with the threats to America's wilderness system, and we need additional financial support to expand our work to better protect our priceless wilderness heritage. Our success comes from working at every level where wilderness needs a voice. We work at the administrative level by providing detailed, technical comments on management actions or projects that could harm wilderness. We work with Congress to gain better oversight of agency wilderness programs and to improve or defeat legislation that would damage these unique lands. We go to court to protect wilderness when other options have failed. Finally, we work at the grassroots level, meeting with land managers in the field and working with citizens to protect their local wilderness. By keeping our focus, using our resources effectively and efficiently, and engaging with citizens and officials at every level, we're able to ensure that wilderness will always have a voice. We have a very clear mission and we stick to it. We have a knowledge base and expertise that few can match. We are steadfastly passionate about wilderness and believe it needs and deserves our undiluted support. Second, we engage in principled advocacy, and we don't shy away from controversy. Those who seek to exploit wilderness for personal or political gain know their actions won't go unchallenged. Third, we know how to leverage our efforts to get maximum results. Using only volunteer attorneys, Wilderness Watch has built the best track record in the nation for protecting wilderness in the courts. We use our networks to inform and train citizens where they live, better protecting the entire wilderness system. Finally, we work hard on public education and citizen engagement. We reach over 100,000 supporters every month, and this growing cadre of informed citizens will vastly increase our ability to protect wilderness in the years ahead. First and foremost, we look at whether we're effectively challenging actions that will harm wilderness. In that regard, we've compiled the strongest Wilderness Act litigation record of any organization in the country, having won over 90% of the cases we've taken to court. We've beat back legislation in Congress that would weaken or gut the Wilderness Act, and each year we've tackled dozens of issues involving individual wild areas. We also look at how effectively we're building and stewarding our organization, and we have historically allocated 90% of our expenses to our wilderness protection programs. We've developed a long-term strategic plan with clearly defined goals and objectives. We've grown our membership every year for the past decade, and we've built an online network that now has more than 100,000 subscribers, allowing us to educate advocates around the country about the challenges facing wilderness. Most people think that once Congress designates an area as wilderness, that it is protected forever, that we no longer need to worry about it and all will be well. But this is not the case. Even after designation, most wildernesses face an array of threats, ranging from illegal motorized use to commercialization to political threats and much more. That's where Wilderness Watch comes in. A second misconception is that all groups with wilderness in their name do the same work. Again, this just isn't true. Most of these groups lobby Congress to designate new wilderness areas, and that is certainly important work. But after a wilderness gets designated, most groups move to other designation efforts or issues. Wilderness Watch is the only national organization that fights to protect wilderness forever. Since 1989, Wilderness Watch has been the leading citizen's voice for protecting wilderness and securing its long-term future. We have scored precedent-setting legal victories that have built an important foundation of wilderness law. These victories include stopping motorized van tours through the Cumberland Island Wilderness in Georgia, overturning the illegal construction of 3 permanent resort lodges in the River of No Return Wilderness in Idaho, and reining in extensive damage by commercial packstock outfitters in California's high Sierras. Most importantly, we have educated the public on the need to protect wildernesses and keep them wild. Federal agencies, their staffs, and the rest of the environmental community now recognize Wilderness Watch as a major positive force for protecting wilderness. One of our greatest historical challenges has been overcoming the misconception, even by many in the conservation community, that wilderness is protected once it's designated. After 25 years of working in the trenches, we know wilderness is anything but secure. We must also overcome the well-connected special interests that want to exploit the public's wilderness for their own private gain, often by influencing public officials. Making sure wilderness has a voice when powerful interests are trying to abuse it would be challenging even for the largest of institutions. Using the law, science, public outreach, expertise, and passion has served our efforts well, but there is always more we could do. Wilderness Watch does not have a large enough staff or budget to confront all of these challenges. That's why we need your help. With additional financial resources, Wilderness Watch would expand our work and extend our reach. We would acquire our own in-house legal staff, increase our public outreach, engage in a wider range of issues affecting wilderness across a wider geographic area, and hire a staff person to work with Congress and the federal agencies in Washington, D.C. Protecting wilderness requires working with all 3 branches of government and the public. Additional funding would allow us to build on and strengthen our programs in every area. Despite the general awareness and support for wilderness in the country, Wilderness Watch could do more to expand our public education and civic engagement efforts, especially with younger generations. While many people understand what wilderness is, there is a very shallow understanding of what is needed to protect it forever. We would like to be able to maintain a more permanent presence in Washington, D.C., where the need for wilderness education is great. The Wilderness Act passed nearly 50 years ago, and much of the institutional knowledge Congress once held has been lost. With a representative in Washington, we could begin to restore that knowledge and rekindle support for wilderness protection and stewardship. We also have a gap in our legal program. Although we are fortunate in being able to use pro bono volunteer attorneys, having a staff attorney would allow us to do much more for wilderness protection.